Welcome back to our video series on the Play framework using Scala. We continue working on our second version of our task list. This version is using Ajax, and we're doing it primarily with jQuery. We had gotten to the point where we had a page that came up using jQuery calls. We have a little JavaScript here that is making that happen. But it has some problems. Okay, and so we can start off by fixing a few of those problems. So let's take our login to. I would like to, let's see, how about a heading 2, login, line break. Our button doesn't say anything yet. It turns out we actually need a create user, username, password, create user. Okay, and so all of these should be sent back. Let's see if that's anywhere close to what we want. Close enough. Okay, good enough for what we're doing right now. Of course, it doesn't do anything, right? Mark. Whatever, yeah. These buttons don't have any behaviors yet. We can click them all we want and nothing's going to happen. In order to make them happen, we need to have some listeners on them. So on click, we'll call login for that button, and on click, we'll call create user here. In order for this to be happy, we need to, well, we don't absolutely have to do this, but it'll make our lives a lot easier. So let's give a login name for that ID and a login pass for that ID. Create name and create pass. Okay, we have these here so that we can just get the information out of these inside of our JavaScript. So we need to add these methods, login and create user. Function login. For now, I just want to print something, one small step at a time. Let's make sure this actually works. Create user. Okay, try to log in. Excellent. That clearly got to our code. So what needs to happen inside of here? Well, by default we have that one user mark in our memory-based data model. That's still the only data model that we have. We're not adding databases yet. That will come later. So what this needs to do is it needs to get the values. So const username equals, and if I continue to use jQuery here, I should be able to say login name dot val, and const password is $pound login pass, not val. Let's print those things out. To make sure that I am doing this right and don't have any typos. Okay, there we go. So we read those values, and now we need to do a call to the server. Now the way I'm going to do this to start with, I want to follow this same model where I want to do a load, except instead of being login to for getting the login page, let's call this validate, because we're trying to validate a user. You can probably, whoops, and since I'm in JavaScript, let's go ahead and let's put some semicolons at the end of the page. And so this validate is going to return the stuff that should go on the page based upon whether the username and the password are correct. Oh wait, how does this know what the username and password are? Right now it wouldn't. Okay, right now this would just say validate and we'd have no username and password. The first cut I'm going to do on this is in some ways bad. It's not as bad as it would have been before, but it's still bad, and we'll talk about why. So the easiest way for me to do this is to pass these through as parameters, because this is just a get, right? Password equals, okay, so username and password are going to be parameters on the route. We called, let's do validate is an action. Sure. Okay. Validating. And let's add a route for it. Validate to controllers, task list to validate. But this validate takes a username and a password. And we should add those into here as well. So why is this problematic? Okay. Because this is an Ajax call, you're never going to see this URL. So when we were doing this previously with our first version, we said that the get version was horrible because the URL that would pop up on their bar would have the user's password on it. Okay, clearly that's problematic. What we're doing here is better in that it doesn't pop up there, but it's still bad. And the reason for that is that the URLs that you're loading can't be encrypted. Okay, so if you're passing around usernames and passwords, you really should be doing this over a secure connection, HTTPS. And we haven't dealt with that. But the URLs themselves can't be encrypted because everything in the middle has to be able to read the URL to know where to send the information. Whereas the body of the message can be, and with HTTPS should be, encrypted. Okay. Nope. I didn't hit. Actually, let's see, are we still, there we go. And it says validating. Excellent. By the way, one of the things that you should be aware of for when you're working with this code is the fact that the F5, the regular refresh, doesn't always refresh your JavaScript. And so sometimes you'll need to do a hard refresh. Control F5 in most browsers will do that to make sure that you get new versions of the JavaScript. Okay, so what should happen instead of validating? Well, turns out this code is actually going to be a lot like what we had in task 1, at least for this inner part. Okay, so if the route doesn't have a username and a password as strings, it would, in fact, actually I don't need that part, just that part. Okay. So we use our memory model and we validate username and password, which came in through this unencrypted GET request. But instead of redirecting here, we're going to say OK. And instead of having a routes, views.html task list 2. So I'm going to make another view, and this one is views.html.login2 because it didn't work. The flashing isn't going to help us here because this is not going through our main again. If we want messages to come up, we'd probably have to pass them in to log into. We could do that. That's not something that'd be hard to add. It's not going to happen in this video. And what does task list 2 do? Well, it's a new view. And we can actually borrow a lot of the code from our original task list. Remember, it's not going to have the main, but it will have potentially the contents here. So tasks is a sequence of string. And let's go ahead and unindent all of that. Okay, let's see if this should be happy. So we run through the tasks with their indices. Yeah, I don't necessarily want all of this form stuff, but let's see what would happen if we refresh. Task list 2 needs a list of tasks, and that would come from when we get the task list. We get the tasks for that username. Okay. Refresh. CSRF form. Yeah, okay, so we are going to have to edit that view a little bit. I'm not going to use the helpers in here. I think the rest of that should compile, even though it's not what we're going to want to use, but what we want to use is fairly close. Okay, so mark. Wow, oh, that worked. Okay, so we got logged in. This is not the view that we want to show because this doesn't do Ajax. This will actually take us back into our old version, but we got a login working. We'd still need to put in the create user. That's fairly simple. And we need to edit this page on the HTML side so that it works in the manner that we want using Ajax calls.